After pronouncing doom on Coeur d'Alene, King Daniel sat down on the hilltop and wrapped himself in his cloak. He remained there in deep meditation for the remainder of the day and through the following night. At sunrise, he descended to embrace his daughter and confide his vision. Father El came to me in a dream and told me to journey southward to his shrine on the mount above Salem, and there I will find the entrance to the underworld. We will go together, for God said. Only as far as Runyon. I must go on to Salem alone, he declared. A week later, King Daniel, alone and on foot, clad in a homespun robe of a shepherd, walked the dusty road westward from ancient Jericho toward the town of Salem. And by late afternoon, he was in sight of that small walled city which crowned the southernmost of 5 low hills, and beyond the town, directly to the north, loomed the bare rock crest of Mount Moriah, a site which had been sacred to Father El since time began. The city's gate was open. He passed through without a challenge, and just inside the Barbican, there was a magistrate sitting at his table under an awning, checking an Egyptian merchant's bill of lading on a papyrus scroll. And Daniel waited until the official had finished his business before making his request. I am a pilgrim seeking the blessings of El's high priest. Can you direct me to his temple? Oh, you wish an audience with our holy king? Well, you have no high priest? Well, he is the high priest, the magistrate said. Well, then where can I find him? Atop Holy Mount 7 days hence. And Daniel had no intention of waiting that long. He took off his golden signet ring and handed it to the official. Send this to your priestly king with the greetings from the ruler of Bashan. The magistrate looked carefully at the royal seal and then handed it back to King Daniel. Our holy king has been expecting you, my lord, he said, bowing his head in respect. He clapped his hands to summon a young boy and whispered instructions in the lad's ear and dispatched him in haste to the palace. A short time later, a burly, white-bearded giant of a man in a snowy robe and a purple mantle, wearing a gold medallion of El's 8-winged all-seeing eye around his neck, swept into view. He was attended by a Nubian who shaded him with a fringed parasol, and he was followed by a mob of laughing children. Do you have any dates? The holy king asked the magistrate in a voice as he approached the table. They think I have an inexhaustible supply. A basket was produced from under the table, enabling the monarch to feed his multitude and finally shoo them away. He put the empty basket down and clapped a strong hand on Daniel's shoulder. Daniel of Bashan, welcome to Salem, he said with a friendly smile and a twinkle in his eye. I am Melchizedek, but as a brother king, you may call me Shem. The Melchizedek's palace was spacious but austere, with white plastered walls, massive ceiling beams of cedar, and floors of polished oak. A sweeping wall mural dominated the audience chamber. This panorama depicted the sinking of a great city and the escape of some of its people in ships. King Shem obliged Daniel's curiosity with an explanation. Well, over the centuries, the great flood of legend has come to mean the drowning of the entire world. Now, that's not what happened. In the olden times, the level of the oceans just slowly rose, and many seacoast towns were gradually inundated. But my ancestors believed our city was too sacred to be abandoned, and over the years we built great earthen dikes in concentric rings that surrounded the palaces and temples. And the sea rose higher and higher, but we raised the ramparts higher yet until one winter there came an awful storm with towering waves that breached the earthen walls, and the city was submerged forevermore. Some of my ancestors escaped by ship and reached these shores. How long ago did this take place? Daniel asked. Long ages before the Egyptians raised their pyramids. But I'm a poor host. Your feet are unwashed, and you have had no refreshment. The holy king clapped his hands and then invited his guests to sit. Servants came forth to bathe Daniel's rude-weary feet in hot water. Spiced wine was poured for him, and pomegranates, dates, figs, and cheese were offered. Having provided the amenities, the priest king came directly to the point. Daniel, my friend, you have the look of a man who suffered a great loss. Tell me, what tragedy has befallen you? Briefly, Daniel recounted the story as he knew it, leaving nothing out, including his oath to descend into the underworld and waken the sleeping Prince Baal. At this, King Shem raised his bushy eyebrows in surprise. By Boel's mighty member, that's an oath to make strong men wet their breeches. You realize that you probably won't come back alive. That's the least of my fears, Daniel said. I've come to you because it is said that an entrance to the underworld is hidden somewhere on the slopes of your holy Mount Moriah. I seek the key to that secret gate and whatever blessing you can give me. Melchizedek nodded gravely. Yes, there is an entrance under the great rock that crowns the summit. It's called the Well of Souls. You'll need 10 fathoms of rope and a lamp. And as for my blessing, I can do no better than to give you this, he said, taking the golden 8-winged medallion from around his neck and passing it over to King Daniel. You notice the inscriptions on the back of each wing. Do you read alphabetic script? No, we use cuneiform. I read Akkadian. Well, no matter. If you follow these formulas counter-sunwise from the top, you will open each of the 7 gates to the cavern world. Now, what about the 8th? Well, you pass through that gate at birth, King Shem said. Well, dare I ask what these letters mean? Well, they are permutations of El's secret name. Wow, this is a gift beyond price. How can I ever repay you? Daniel asked. The priest king of Salem looked upon his guest with eyes that seemed older and wiser than Daniel dared imagine. Gods and goddesses are but human reflections in El's great mirror, he said. When men and women no longer need a goddess of war, I will be repaid. With a coil of rope, a lamp, a goatskin of water, a knapsack of provisions, and El's medallion around his neck, King Daniel climbed Mount Moriah with the early morning sun at his back. He found the narrow entrance to the Well of Souls hidden in the base of the great flat rock that formed the crest of the sacred mountain. A curious raven circling overhead was the only observer as Daniel belayed his descending line off a tamarisk bush and slithered backwards feet first into the dark opening. The vertical shaft was small enough in diameter to brace his back against, enabling him to chimney crawl his way down 10 fathoms to where the hole opened into the ceiling of a high vaulted gallery. The end of his rope dangled high above a huge mound of debris that had fallen down through the well shaft over millennia. Daniel dropped the last 3 cubits to the trash heap below and scrambled down to the cavern floor. The gloomy chamber was illuminated by the thin shaft of light from above. In the far wall there was an ancient bronze door, set deep in the natural rock. Flanking this portal on either side were a pair of freestanding pillars, one of marble and the other of an orange metal that resembled brass. Both of these columns were decorated with strange symbols and inscribed with alphabetic characters that were oddly familiar. He held his lamp and examined them more closely. 4 of the glyphs matched those which made up the formulas on the back of El's medallion. Cast into the greenish bronze of the ancient door was a bas-relief of the planetary symbol of Saturn upside down. Below this figure, a golden triangular plate was inset in a recess. This triangle was engraved with the same 4 letters that made up the formulas on the medallion, 3 at the points and 1 in the middle. Daniel touched the gold plate and discovered that it was loose in its setting. Each point could be depressed independently, as if balanced from the center. There was no handle or ring to open the door. So, obviously, the triangle was a kind of lock. The king pushed, pulled, pried, and for a moment in frustration, and then he remembered old Shem's instructions. He turned over the medallion and looked for the first formula in a counter-sunwise direction. Aleph, Mem, Shin, Tau. And sure enough, Aleph, Mem, and Shin were engraved on the points of the golden triangle with Tau in the center. He pressed the points down in that order and then pushed at the midpoint inward. There was a soft click, and the ancient door swung open. Beyond the door, a steep, narrow, and twisting flight of stone steps led downward as far as his lamp's light would reveal, and from the surrounding darkness came mournful howling sounds and hissing whispers as if all the ghosts of the netherworld were trying to make themselves heard. The sheer sides of the stone staircase fell away into an abyss of utter darkness. Without hesitation, Daniel descended. The door clanged shut behind him, and the rush of air from its closing blew out his lamp. After a moment of total darkness, his eyes adjusted to the deeper level of gloom. Far below him in a vast cavern, he could barely discern a line of torches. A line of torches making the edge of a lower plateau. He went down and down until he reached the level ground at the bottom, and here he could see that the edge dropped off into a bottomless crevasse. There seemed to be nothing but Stygian darkness below. All along the lip of the verge sat huddled human figures, gray with the dust of endless years, softly weeping, sadly moaning, hopelessly waiting. Daniel peered out into the blackness. He knew intuitively that this dark void was not as vast and empty as it seemed to be. There was something solid about it. He picked up a rock and threw it hard. Clang! The next bronze door was less than 4 cubits away. He walked back a few paces, clutched his medallion, took a running start, and leaped straight off the cliff. Daniel landed just over the ledge on the other side of the chasm. He looked back at the forlorn ranks of lost souls still waiting, still prisoners of the illusion. They hadn't even raised their heads. He turned to the door, marked with the inverted symbol of Jupiter, pressed Mem, Shin, Tau, and Aleph, and again there was a clicking sound, and again the door swung open. He entered a huge cavern dimly lit by natural phosphorescent glow from the rocks themselves. These surfaces flickered with strange abstract patterns of light and shadow. Directly across the gallery, facing him, crouched a huge statue of a black lion. Beyond its massive forelegs, set deep in its leonine breast, was the third bronze door. Its gleaming gold triangle beckoned Daniel forward. He marched straight toward it, but the great lion's head drew his gaze upward. He stopped and stared up in fascination. The huge head was alive. It was drawing him up and inside. And then he was the black lion, gigantic, all-knowing and all-powerful. The imprisoning cavern walls were gone. He, as the black lion, was enthroned on a dais in a vast hall of a marble palace, surrounded by thousands of worshipful subjects, all on their knees, raising their hands in unison, and then prostrating themselves like a rippling wave as they chanted, "Hail to the King of heaven and earth!" Oh, it was exhilarating, but Daniel could feel his identity, that sum of faults and virtues, that unique index of memories, hopes, and dreams, fading away, eclipsed by this vision of ultimate power. Drawing on the last spark of his individual humanity, he clutched the 8-winged medallion of Father El. A soul-wrenching snap on the pebble that was his consciousness was a stone flung from a sling, and he hit the ground before the bronze door, deep set in the black marble of the lion's breast. And upon this portal was displayed the reverse symbol of Mars, and another golden triangle, and Daniel pushed the points of the plate in the order of the next permutation, and the door swung open.